On April 7, 1862, at Pittsburgh Landing, Tennessee, or Shiloh as it was known in the South, General Grant's Union armies had just survived a massive Confederate attack under General Andrew Sidney Johnston. History and popular mythology focuses much attention to the hornet's nest in regards to turning points of the battle. Many people little realize or acknowledge the intensity and importance of the early morning portions of the battle on the Federal right. This film hopes to display the significance of the early morning fighting on the Federal right under Sherman's and McClernand's divisions. We reflect this part of the battle through the eyes of the men in Hare's brigade. Our hope is you will appreciate the great sacrifices of both Confederate and Union soldiers engaged in this little discussed part of the battle.
I trace these gardens o'er and o'er, meditate on each sweet flower, thinking of each happy hour. Oh, Johnny is gone for a soldier, shul, 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 arun.
The 8th Illinois Volunteer Infantry responded to the early call for the Union in April of 1861 and were camped at Fort Defiance in Cairo, Illinois. After their 90 days were up, most re-enlisted for 3 years' service. Sergeant Dietrich Conrad Smith was 21 and college educated, hailing from a prominent family in Pekin, Illinois. He is the son of German immigrants. He re-enlisted as second lieutenant of Company I on July 25, 1861. Again, at Fort Defiance, they lived quite well, as fear of a Confederate attack across the river seemed unlikely.
Sun and dust. Hot as the deuce. Lots of drilling and ditto fun. Suits me to a T. I'm going in for 3 years as quick as I can. All chance for fight is given up here. We're getting sharp. We trade off our extra fodder for pies, milk, and good things. Charles Wills, 8th Illinois.
You are undoubtedly acquainted with the condition of our country. The traitor's arm is raised to destroy our glorious institution under which we have prospered and been happy. The enemy is within our borders. They would tear down the stars and stripes and insight of liberty, and place in its stead the representation of the evilest reptiles, and the rattlesnake rags the stigma of slavery.
The 8th Illinois was brigaded with the 18th Illinois, 16th Iowa, and 11th Iowa. Their unique gray state jackets, gray pants, and odd whipple-like hat must have been quite a sight to see. They took part in various raids in 1861, including the Bird's Point Expedition. Men of the 8th Illinois also took part in publishing the first issue of the Stars and Stripes newspaper after a Kentucky pro-Southern print shop was taken over by the Federals. Dietrich later finds time to write his sweetheart, Carolyn, where she attends college in Beardstown, Illinois.
But then someday I may be privileged to show you my experiences in that line of business. At least I hope so, for I do not expect to feel much Southern steel. I intend to make them feel mine. At least I will try pretty hard, those miserable traitors.
Early in 1862, Hare's brigade took part in the actions against Fort Henry and at the Battle of Fort Donelson. A warm winter led the men to shed and dump their greatcoats as they approached Fort Donelson. However, a cold snap made the evening challenging for these suckers of Illinois.
It rains this night and snows, and we are without tents. I tell you, Carrie, this is hard on us, and it begins to have its effect on the men. We heard them coughing and shivering with cold, yet the night passed.
Heavily engaged at the point of the Confederate assault, the 8th Illinois held out until their ammunition was exhausted, and they withdrew from the field. Despite their brigade's retreat, the Confederates pull back into the fort, and General Buckner surrenders to General Grant the following day.
Sad are many at home at the loss of some father, brother, husband, or friend. But not only those at home sad, also we deeply mourn and grieve over the loss of our comrades who only a day or two ago were yet in our midst, settling around our campfires full of life, spirit, and patriotism. But they are no more, and we must see them shot down by our side, victims of this unnatural rebellion. They died bravely and for a good cause. Silent and blessed be their rest in the soldier's grave.
Threadbare as their shoddily constructed gray uniforms eroded away, they found themselves ordered downriver to camp at Savannah, Tennessee in early March 1862. Hare was designated 1st Brigade and was part of McClernand's 1st Division. As McClernand had an irascible personality and did not get along with his fellow officers, may be a reason why he was camped across the river from Pittsburgh Landing in Savannah. The Army of the Tennessee was now amassing at Pittsburgh Landing. Late in March, Hare's brigade was ordered across the river to camp at Pittsburgh Landing. They were placed with McClernand's division near Jones's Field on the Federal right. General John Alexander McClernand was a 49-year-old career politician from Illinois. He commanded the 1st Division at the Battle of Shiloh. McClernand was constantly writing letters to senior commanders, fellow politicians, and even President Lincoln in an attempt to take the lion's share of credit for the Army's achievements. Many times he would bypass his chain of command and even vied with Lincoln for his own independent command. However, after Vicksburg, his letter writing would later cause Grant to relieve him of command. Despite these flaws, McClernand was a solid and competent commander. He even questioned the placement of the Union camp at Pittsburgh Landing, as it had no set disposition to face an enemy attack. Despite later strains between Sherman and McClernand, they worked in concert at Shiloh very well. Historians may wish to reevaluate McClernand's role as a great civilian general. General Grant made the mistake of setting camps at Pittsburgh Landing in a very haphazard manner, with no distinguishable appearance to hold off a surprise attack, as none was expected. Hare's brigade in the 8th Illinois was camped north and perpendicular to Sherman's division. As the men began to amass at Pittsburgh Landing, the Army was slow to establish logistics to support the increasing number of men. Rations were short, and Hare's brigade went on a downriver raid to seize a Confederate warehouse. They captured thousands of pounds of pork for the Federals. Soon the men were dining on solid Army fare: soft bread, beans, pork, flapjacks, desiccated potatoes, and coffee. The officers dining on ham, bread, canned cherries, smoked oysters, and more. Some divisions were drilled regularly and routinely, while others had little discipline and were left to lounge around camp at will. The men lived in Sibley tents, which were actually quite unpleasant according to Billings in Hardtack and Coffee.
These tents were shelter for up to 12 men, but in fixed camp use, as many as 20 were made to share one tent. In cold or rainy weather, when every opening is closed, they are most unwholesome tenements, and to enter one of them of a rainy morning from the outer air, and encounter the night's accumulation of nauseating exhalations from the bodies of 12 men, differing wildly in their habits of personal cleanliness, was an experience which no old soldier has ever been known to recall with any great enthusiasm. Of course, the air was of the vilest sort, and it is surprising to see how men endured it as they did.